think the most successful leaders are those that open up and listen to diverse points of view and then make a decision. And Alexandra, one of the things I will say is you don't have to lead people to be a leader. You know, I'm very proud of the company I work for now, Amazon Web Services, where we have many people who are individual contributors that lead that technology and give people their perspective and help others who are perhaps at an earlier stage of their career than they are.
Welcome to FemLead, the podcast dedicated to empowering the next generation of leaders through inspiring stories of success from female role models. Our mission is to equip you with actionable insights and practical tools to achieve your professional goals. FemLead is more than just a podcast. It's a vibrant community and a dynamic platform committed to closing the gender gap in leadership. In each episode, your host Alexandra brings you powerful perspectives and dynamic strategies from remarkable women who share their journeys, advice, and experiences. Whether it's career progression, leadership, or overcoming challenges, FemLead is here to help you thrive and set clear goals for success. If you enjoy our show, please leave us a review and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. Let's dive in and take action.
Hey there, looking for a place to grow your leadership skills and connect with amazing people? Check out the FemLead membership. With it, you get access to fun events, useful digital tools, monthly coaching and inspiring masterclasses, plus you'll join a supportive community that's all about lifting each other up. Yes, that's right. We have in-person events, we have online masterclasses, and we also have a community of like-minded people that really want to thrive in their careers. And don't forget, members get great discounts on femlead.com for merchandise and events in Copenhagen. So why wait? Head over to femlead.com and join the FemLead membership today. Let's lead, learn, and thrive together. Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of FemLead podcast. Long time no see, that's true. Since moving to the US, my life has been a little bit more hectic than I anticipated. But I really wanted to bring you this fantastic interview because I think our next guest is truly a powerhouse and an impressive speaker. Melanie McGrory is the Director of Tech for EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa at Amazon Web Services. And today she is joining us to discuss what does a Zig-Zag career mean and how to really take risks knowing that you will land on your feet when it comes to your career. Her team supports digital native companies and helps customers enable digital transformations, new customer experiences, and business innovation outcomes. Melanie is a powerhouse and a transformation specialist with over 30 years of industry experience. Her focus today is on accelerating customer outcomes by advocating best-suited solutions that deliver long-term value for customers. And she asks what are their biggest transformation goals today, and are there any sort of roadblocks preventing longer-term success? She's regularly blocking time out in her diary to look further ahead and identify opportunities, trends that she needs to prepare for. She shares that life at AWS is all about trying to glimpse over the horizon. She previously worked in a range of roles, including in cybersecurity, software, business analysis, and organizational strategy. Today, we welcome Melanie McGrory at FemLead Podcast, and we'll deep dive into some pretty cool career advice. So without further ado, enjoy and let's welcome Melanie. Melanie, welcome to FemLead Podcast. It's an honor to have you here. Thank you for spending your day with us. How are you today?
I am great, particularly as it's towards the end of my day, but for many of your listeners, it will be the beginning of the day. So really looking forward to this conversation, Alexandra. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Melanie. Your career spans a few decades in a lot of industries. And for us, having you here is really an honor because we really want to discuss your career advice, but also learn from your leadership how to look at your career as a zigzag and how to take risks while you still land on your feet and kind of do the next level of your career. We discussed that we will deep dive into some of your learnings. So without further ado, I wanted to ask you, firstly, how did that experience of moving from industry to industry shape your approach to leadership?
Yeah, so I've always been interested in science and engineering really about how things work, because I think it's important that when we're trying to solve problems or we're just working together in a workshop, that we understand what it is that we're trying to achieve. And I'm looking for leaders that can give me space in order to be able to do that, to give me time to think, to give me time to work with my colleagues, and also leaders that challenge respectfully. There's nothing worse than a leader saying, "This is my point of view. This is what we're going to go with." I think the most successful leaders are those that open up and listen to diverse points of view and then make a decision. And Alexandra, one of the things I will say is you don't have to lead people to be a leader. I'm very proud of the company I work for now, Amazon Web Services, where we have many people who are individual contributors, but that lead that technology and give people their perspective and help others who are perhaps at an earlier stage of their career than they are.
How do you manage your leadership style if you are an individual contributor and you know that it's not that you're on your own, but you are a functional leader. So you drive the agenda of whatever the strategic goal is, but you don't have that team set up, or maybe sometimes you feel like, okay, I'm here by myself driving this agenda, meaning that maybe you have less sparring partners, maybe you have less of a support group. What do you advise our individual contributors that are on a leadership track to take into account if they want to grow within a large environment?
Yeah, so I would say there's a couple of things here, and I work with many individual contributors. In fact, probably more individual contributors than I do people managers, Emily, because I'm always looking for those individual contributors to give me advice on technology or where they've solved a problem before. So what I would encourage, particularly people at the early stages of their career, is to build your reputation through engaging with a network of like-minded people. Uh, there are in any company I've ever worked in, there will always be groups of like-minded people that will either get together formally because somebody has said we need to do this, or informally. And I would encourage anybody to look at what's available. And if something is not available, then set something up yourself. So let's say, for example, you're sat here today, I think in New York, I'm talking to you, the architecture of New York around you. Let's just say you're building your career in tech architecture, and there's nobody else that you can see that's doing the same. Well, there's probably at least one person. So ask your manager to introduce you to someone, build that network, and then build up that forum and encourage others to apply. We have an organization in AWS that started off really small. It's called AWS Cloud Women, and it started off with just a handful of people getting together because they wanted to talk about the different challenges they were facing. The last event we had hundreds of people there, not just from AWS, but from our partners, from our customers. So start small and it can build into something, a lot bigger if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. The power of community. You've spoken in the intro of your career when we discussed first. You did mention the fact that your career looks like a zigzag because of all the different experiences you've had and all the different roles you've taken. If someone listens and is interested in understanding how to navigate that zigzag and actually likes to have different roles every few years, what is something you recommend them to be aware of, and what is maybe a surprise that you had as you've experienced your different roles?
Yeah, so what I would say to people is, particularly those who may be a bit more introverted, who don't find it easy to go out and network, is actually learn a bit about the organization you're in. Do try and meet some people that are that you're interested in. You're one person at a time, and it can snowball. And from there, you can start to understand the different types of roles in the organization. And I always say to people, don't think about moving into a different role at the point that a job gets advertised. Look at the organization you're in, look at what you like doing, because I think it's hugely important to actually like what you do rather than do a job that you think is the right job to do because it gets you further up the career ladder. You've got to want to get out of bed in the morning and really enjoy what you do. And if sure, by the way, you're going to have some good days and some bad days as well. So that's not saying that everything is always positive. But it is important that you do see what's around in the company. Don't just exist in your silo, and just reach out to one person who's maybe similar to you, who's in a different part of the business, and say, hey, I'd like to learn a little bit more about what you're doing. And then maybe they'll introduce you to your manager, or you can facilitate that. I give you an example. Here in my current job is I work across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And there are teams that we have in Seattle that build our products and services. And I have 2 or 3 people within those teams that I engage with on a regular basis, not necessarily because I'm looking for a job, but I want to learn, and I want them to learn about our business as well. And it's from that you can start to think about what energizes you, what gets you out of bed in the morning, what do you like doing, and then get your name known for if there's an opportunity in the future in this particular area, then please let me know and I'll apply for it.
Yeah, it's a good piece of advice to always be aware of what's going on in the organization you work for, especially if it's a very large organization, because sometimes for example, with big projects, we cannot really be up to date on each of the newest releases, for example. And this is also a way of, it's a way to kind of be in front, understanding that you are part of a huge environment and you play a part. But there are, hundreds of people that also drive the agenda together, and maybe at some point you can work together. I think that's a very good reflection that I've had working in large companies, that it's a big difference from working in startups and building startups, that you kind of get to know the depths of a product and organization. That when you join a large company, it's very different.
And it is very different from academia as well. Going through school and university, whatever the equivalent there is here, we have a great saying, which I absolutely agree with, is about owning your career. And as I say, that's not just about applying for a role as and when it comes about, but actually learning about different parts of the organization. People that have taken the time to learn and figure out, actually, I'd really like to my next move to be in this particular area. We should be helping those people that actually want to do that. And I get the balance right between owning your career versus somebody planning your career for you.
What do you think we should do when it comes to owning your career for, let's say, middle managers, people that have 5 to 10 years of experience? So let's say that you own a career track. What do you think it's important to do once you've kind of gotten through 2 or 3 roles in your career in order to own that career path?
So what I always say to myself, and I've said it for probably the last 20 years to myself, is think about what good looks like for you in 1 to 2 or 3 years' time, whatever horizon you think is appropriate for you, and then figure out, what do you want to do? What is the impact that you then want to have on your team? What is the impact you want to have on your business? And I would say then to those middle managers is, if you've got that view about what good looks like for you, then again, as with the last, your last discussion we had is, think about then who you need to engage with in order that they know that in 1 to 2 years' time you're looking for a job. And this is though the learning that you'll do in order that you can turn up being 70 or 80% competent for um, that particular role. And one piece of advice I would give to everybody is, I see it, seen it a number of times, is individuals, and it's not just limited to women, but I see it more with women, talking ourselves out of a job because we don't tick the box with everything. But actually, there's a lot that you can do to coach yourself, or get a coach that can help you get to the level at which you need to be. So don't talk yourself out of a role, talk yourself into it, together with the plan that you'll need in order to be successful. And I talk about coaching and mentoring. I have a board of people, a bit like a CEO board, where I've got one person I know that's particularly good at these 2 or 3 skills that I'll go to if I'm struggling with something that I know that he or she is good at that. I go to somebody else for a different challenge. And I'm not talking here about having 10 people, that have that board of people, that your close-knit community that you can go to for unfiltered advice in order to help you grow as an individual and to position you for that next job.
This is fantastic. This is really key to owning your career and taking charge of the next step without waiting for a job to be posted or someone to say, would you be available for this next challenge? Because the reality is that, to your point, Melanie, there are leaders who are not going to spend time on this. They will actually have someone in mind, or they would, delegate this task to finding the next right person for the team. And you will just not be part of that conversation at all because you did not interact or did not own your story, so that someone that now needs talent such as yourself would be able to get in touch and say, you know what, you would really fit into this new setup. So don't self-reject. Let somebody else tell you no if you really want to take the chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I always say to myself is, I'm not growing as an individual unless I'm learning. If I know everything, which is extremely rare, because I don't, but I know that I'm not growing in that particular role if I can just do the same thing again and again. So you'll never have, jobs will evolve as well. You'll never have 100% of the skills. And you're always going to have to either self-taught or reach out, get some formal training, enablement, whatever else it happens to be. Could be softer skills as well that you will need in order to be able to be effective at your job. We spoke earlier when we first met about, but being in transition with different roles, and you never quite know what's in front of you, and so therefore having 100% of the skills won't necessarily help you when you finding the one thing you need you don't have.
Absolutely. You had a very impressive storyline of career zigzag, which I really like. I like this concept. And we discussed that it will be great to point at a pivotal moment of your career when you actually decided to make a move that was maybe unexpected based on your career track. Can you share a little bit of how did you make that decision? What it was, if you can share, and what motivated you to try out something that maybe at the time wasn't something you expected to do?
Yeah. So it was, I can still remember it now. So I was, I was offered what they call a secondment, which was I stayed on a contract with the company I worked for. But I was offered on a secondment, so I went to work for 2 years as a chief information officer to a consortium of companies. And this for me was a big challenge because I'd never been a CIO before. I tried to talk myself out of it and think, what happens if I'm not successful? Which was an interesting point I'll come back to. And the reason why, though, I came to the conclusion I want to do this job was, first of all, I believe that I could grow with the job and I could be successful. And the second thing was the opportunity afforded to learn different technical skills, but also hugely important for me was learning to work with different companies and having to really index on my influencing skills, because I didn't own many of the resources. They were all owned by the different companies within this consortium. So I had to persuade people that it was in our collective vested interests in order to be able to deliver what was needed for when we hit the go live date. Really, what I come back to time and again. Why did I make that decision? And for me, it was because of the opportunity afforded to learn something very different from what I'd been doing before. And when I came back into my owning organization, and by the way, there was no guarantee of a job at the level at which I'd come from, so it was a risk. I came back with so much more that I'd learned than I would have done had I stayed in the company for 2 years. And for sure, some people said to me, Melanie, why are you doing that? You've got a great career here. You can be this next time around and you'll be in charge of that. But actually, this job was so much more interesting. And what I learned with doing that CIO job, I continue to use today.
Hmm. That's a great example. And I need to ask you next, what would have happened if you were not successful?
Uh, um, so I think successful failure, you learn from it. And if I'd not been successful, then I would have asked myself why, what was what were the challenges I wasn't able to deal with, and then what's missing that I now need to plug some of those gaps in me in order that I can be successful the next time a similar job comes up or something that needs those particular skill sets. And, I would have gone back to my owning company, as it were, to say, hey, what, here I am. This is what I've learned. So I still would have updated my CV and said, this is what I've gained since I've been away, and this is what I can offer to the organization now. So I probably would have been a bit down, though, let me be honest, for a few days, and it done the thing of what happened, why didn't it work? But then I would have thought about the learning experience from it.
Absolutely. And that's really key to taking any risks, because you just don't know. I think there's something there about owning the fact that when you try something different and you don't have certainty on how that setup will look like, you can talk yourself out of it and not give yourself the chance to learn what does it mean actually to do this role. Because the reality is that in most of our experiences, we take it through our own personal filter. So truly, I can't really compare my journey with any one of my friends or peers. It won't be the same. But the fact that it's a risk really keeps some of us, I would say, connected with what we know more than what we could know. And that's also part of taking that risk and gaining that leadership track. It's hard to build up a leadership career if you don't take risks, because to your point, you will end up being in the same cozy environment where at some point you'll be like, what am I learning here? What can I do to better this environment? But if you have limited knowledge, because things have been the same for the past 10 years, you won't be able to, let's say, react to some of the new environmental or setup in updates that you have.
We talk a little bit in Amazon Web Services about feedback as a gift. We do ask for feedback, and in those situations where things are not going quite as well as you expected, or you yourself have said, I've not been successful at this, then ask for feedback. Hey, how did you think I did there? Or what would you have done differently? Any advice you can give me? And that can come without any, without anybody thinking, oh, if I'm doing that, does it make me look weak? It doesn't. It actually makes you a lot stronger.
Hmm. Can you share with us if there is any advice you would have given your younger self, knowing what you know today about your career?
Yeah, I would have said to my younger self to take more risks and take control of my career. And that's not to say, I know we've spoken about that previously, that you need to have everything mapped out, but you need to have some control. It's about changing yourself, do something different and to learn from that experience. At my early stages of my career, I very much left it to my managers, my leaders to tell me what they thought was the next role for me, rather than me saying, well, actually, this is what I'd like to do. And that changed when I've been in the industry for about 15 years or so, which you probably think is a long time, but it took me that long to because I was largely enjoying the roles I was given. But then I asked myself, what else is out there? Am I missing out? Because even though I'm enjoying myself, maybe there's something I might enjoy more. So, I would say take those risks.
That's also a growth mindset, right? Everything you're sharing here is a mindset of someone who believes that the next step is a better step because you will learn something new and you will be prepared for more challenges and opportunities. And that's really something that I think is just a fantastic opportunity to discuss with you because we can all hear that you took the time to reflect on what did each of these opportunities mean for me and how can I be better in my next role. And I think that's really a gift that we get to hear from you, those reflections. And I'm really thankful because I do want to ask you what challenges you've had to overcome, and maybe beyond that, not necessarily what challenge in particular, but how do you approach challenges? Because it must be difficult to move from industry to industry without being a subject matter expert and then leading large teams. To your point, you have to leverage your influence, your networking, your leadership skills. How do you manage all of those challenges kind of all packed together, and how do you navigate them?
Yeah, I mean, lead. Everybody's got their own leadership style, and I encourage people to find their own leadership style, and it's being that leader that will help you navigate the challenges. I spoke earlier about taking feedback. Is you have to take feedback from your team, even if you don't particularly like it. I also, as I said, I seek feedback from others about what I could have done differently or how to approach a particular problem. I don't always go into problem solving with a view of exactly the problem I'm trying to solve, which may sound a bit strange, but what I am trying to do is understand, particularly when you're working with customers, is what actually is the challenge here? What does the good look like for you? What is the outcome you're trying to drive? Because quite often, you'll find that the problem you're trying to solve for could be much broader. Well, not quite often. There are times when it's broader. And that's where having that diversity of opinion when you're problem solving really comes to the fore, because you've got different people with deeper expertise than you that are able then to give that expertise, and you then as a leader can trust your instinct and use the data in order to come up with the right answer. That to me is what the leader is there to do, is to listen and act, and be very clear about whether or not, if you make a decision, whether or not that decision is reversible, because those that aren't maybe need a little bit more thinking. We, many organizations now with the advent of generative AI are moving quicker and quicker. Some some less so. But it's about how you build your decision making into the speed at which you're comfortable with working at. That's important.
Great. Thank you so much, Melanie. I think this was a great overview also of some of the leadership lessons you gathered and wanted to share with us. And as we move into, the state of leadership today, you see more women joining leadership roles. And we're here discussing how can we promote more role models to see more women joining those leadership roles. What do you see changed, and what do you think will continue to change in the way we organize and lead organizations in the next years?
So I think first of all is having role models, and role models isn't just looking at senior people; it's looking at individuals in the organization. And let me just give you an example of that. Is last week I had the privilege of being in Johannesburg in South Africa, and I was at an event, and I looked around, and firstly, there are a lot of young people there, but also I was literally blown away by the number of women there. So you had a lot more diversity, and I think as organizations, as we continue to create that inclusive environment that attracts people from all backgrounds, that gives us more diverse teams and makes us stronger as leaders when we seek the opinions of those diverse teams. So I don't think there's a magic answer, Alexandra. It is really about continuing to do what is working well to create that diversity within the organization, but also as individuals is don't leave it to others to call out bad behaviors. I really think it hugely inappropriate when people let an offensive remark or cutting somebody off many times in a meeting when that's the right time to actually call that out. So I would say us all as individuals, not just necessarily people in leadership positions, need to call out that bad behavior in order that we can create that more inclusive environment for everybody to thrive rather than simply just come in and do their job.
Mm-hmm. Very, very good point, Melanie. Did you have a story or let's say piece of advice to share with our younger audience that looks up to you in terms of, I can build up my career in this way, and maybe give them some starters advice? What should they maybe focus on, or what mindset they should see their career with as they now start their professional journey?
Yeah. So I would say, first of all, is be open. I'm sure everybody listening to this has heard the saying about the jobs you see today will not necessarily be the jobs that will be here tomorrow. It's them, and that's certainly the case for me, having lived through a number of tech revolutions, as I call it, with the internet and now generative AI as well. So don't stay open to the type of job that may be available to you in 5 years' time. There'll undoubtedly be new jobs that will come on as technology continues to advance. The second thing I would say is about building your network. Yeah, it is important. You don't have to go and introduce yourself to 10 people every week, but you uh, should be engaging with people within your own organization, or when you get an opportunity to do so outside your own organization, so that you can understand what they're doing and you can plan your career a little bit better. And then you did ask me earlier about the advice I would give to people is, I would take risks. I would find a good mentor. I would also, if you if you feel you need it, encourage your leader to give you a coach, and think about the people around you. We've all grown up with our friends being around us, and we go to our friends for advice. That can happen in the workplace as well. Continue to do that in order that you can, if you're faced with a tricky situation, that you can reach out to different people. And, one point I would make is, so the leader of Europe, Middle East and Africa, who also happens to be a lady, by the way, amazing, for AWS and EMEA. I've heard her say a number of times here about women are over-mentored and under-sponsored. You'll get to a point, I know we talked about starting off, but you'll get to a point where it's important for you to be sponsored into the next role. So, have that conversation with your manager or indeed anybody else within the organization that you think it's relevant to help you be sponsored into that next role.
That's a fantastic way of sharing really key leadership tips, because I find this topic of sponsorship, and we actually had a full episode on it, really, really important to your career growth, but we don't talk enough about it. It's important that when you're not in the room, people talk about you, and they talk about you in a good way, that they say, if Melanie, wasn't in this setup, we wouldn't be as successful. That sort of discussion can drive really your career, but also the narrative that you are in the best place in the organization. And in order to support further, you need to be promoted. And to your point, maybe, and this is something that I love your input on as well, if you don't tell anybody that you do have ambitions to grow, then some people that could sponsor you wouldn't know that you want to be kind of taken into account for those future roles. And my advice to it from my lived experience, definitely a different setup than you, Melanie, and way shorter. But I have been told a couple of times that my own leaders were surprised when I told them that I had this ambition of going to the next, career track, because they weren't sure I was up for it, or I was interested. So it was really good I told them, so that now they have this mindset of, oh, Alexandra is someone I should actually support and sponsor as she progresses in her career. And I would tell everyone listening to, don't shy away from asking for that support. If you feel like maybe you're not giving clear indications that you're up for a promotion or a new role, because sometimes people are busy and maybe they're not really considering your profile, not because they don't want to, but because you weren't on their radar before. And now you start building up your little tribe that's going to be your next, support group. And one of those sponsors can actually have a big impact in your next role.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And one of my early mentors said to me, Melanie, don't treat the workplace as like school or university, where your results will get you noticed. That you need to be more rounded in the workplace and think about how you show up, who you engage with. And that's not to say, by the way, for everybody that's listening, and I love the way you've described it, by the way, that you're always out networking, trying to find the next job, for growing your career. It's about just being mindful that you will need to put yourself forward in order that you can have the career that you want, as opposed to the one that is given to you. And as you say, what's the harm in saying, I'm really interested in this? And it's lovely to hear what you've just said about people hadn't expected you to go in the direction that you have. And, I certainly, when I moved from what I would call technical roles, delivery roles, into general management roles, where I suddenly had to learn about P&L and selling, and just thinking, my goodness, how do I do all of this? Before I put forward, this is why I want to do it, this is what I'm going to do, and this is the help I need from you if you're willing to give me a try for this, nobody had thought about me for that particular type of role.
Yep. Yeah. Very good point. It happens that sometimes you get the role before you're ready for it, whatever that means. Like, we're not trying to generalize here that you need to be, you should take any roles. This is not what we're talking about. But you have the opportunity to step up to the role once you have, that setup ready. And I guess what we're both saying is that you shouldn't shy away from trying, at least, and figuring out that maybe this is part of your career and it will teach you something that will take you to the next level. Or to your previous point, if it doesn't work out the way you want, now you have all the learnings of how things work, what worked for you, what didn't work for you, and how you can use all of those different new skills into another situation that will for sure be more enriching than if you hadn't had that experience. So it doesn't mean it's a zero-sum game. It's actually more complex than that.
Yeah, I absolutely. And, it's not necessarily about, as I said previously, about going up to the next job, but it's about how you can grow in your particular role. And, I know that I've grown the most when I've taken on roles at the same level. It's not necessarily a role that's given me a promotion. It's just an expansion of my current responsibilities, or it's something completely different at the same level.
Absolutely. Melanie, before we close the this lovely chat, I do want to ask you, how do you recommend us to be visible in an organization? What do you think are some good strategies for really promoting your work and building that sponsorship in a large organization?
Yeah, so first of all, it's a journey. It's not a one-off net of exercises. So it does come about learning the organization, meeting different people within that organization, and having a conversation with your leader about what it is that you want to achieve in the next 1 to 3 years, and go with a view of what you're going to do, but what you're looking for them to do. And ask them, as you said before, ask them to sponsor you for a role in a particular area, or get them to introduce you to somebody in a particular area. The worst they say is no, and then you can actually say, well, why not? Because it's got us, there's things that you can do, that there's also things that you'll need your good leaders to do. And by good leaders, I mean those that take their responsibility to pull up the next generation behind them. There's nothing worse than somebody going into a role as a leader and acting like Superman or Superwoman. Yeah. And, I did that in the first few years of my career when I moved into a leadership role, because I thought it would reflect badly on me if somebody takes over for me and does the job differently to the way I do it, and they get pluses for it. And actually it took somebody to saying that's a good thing, because that shows that you have created the right succession plan for your organization, and you've moved on to a different role, but you've left what was the description, a shadow greater than the one than yourself within that organization, so it continue to be successful. They finish with the first thing you should do. So whenever you go into a leadership role, I'm not sure I 100% agree with this, but is to look at your successor. But you should always be looking at succession planning. And that's where, even if there are no roles at that point in time, then people's names get talked about, as you said earlier.
Absolutely. Melanie, this is great. We can talk another hour about all of that preparation for the next level of your career when you are a leader of leaders, and when you have to navigate more executive rooms. But I'll keep that for the next interview so that we don't take all of your afternoon here. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this chat. Definitely a couple of things that we're going to take with us, and we're going to start applying: risk-taking, looking at your career as a learning opportunity, not being afraid to share that this experience had taught you something, even if it doesn't pan out really the way you want. And also the fact that you have to kind of become visible if you are not in a position where your work can easily be seen, because there's nothing wrong with the fact that you want to be sponsored or you want to be acknowledged for your work, maybe even beyond your team. And those are things that I think we should take with us as we navigate through different levels of our careers. And as we close, I want to thank you for taking this opportunity to join FemLead. It has been an interview that I wanted to do for a few months now, and I'm really grateful that we get to spend this time with you. I hope you've enjoyed it as well, and I hope we'll get to reconnect with you soon.
Yeah, I had a fabulous time, Alexandra, and just can I say just thank you to you and all of the people that work with you for making your organization a success. You do a fabulous job, and particularly given this is something that you do on the side of your day job as well. Thank you for giving back to the community.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Thank you to the FemLead team now that they're listening. Thank you all of our listeners and supporters for being here with us. And stay tuned for more interviews with inspiring role models.
If you like this episode, please give us a review on your preferred streaming platform. Spread the word, share our stories with your friends, and stay connected with us on our social media platforms. See you next time.